Okay, so I'm going to be covering ride sourcing, which is Uber and Lyft, also commonly called ride sharing. I'll talk about why it's called that as well. I'll talk about how it disrupted the taxi industry, and also a bit about the biggest players in the ride sourcing space, where they came from, where the technology kind of got its start. So ride sourcing fundamentally is a program which allows anyone to drive riders to their destination and riders to enter their destination on the app and be paired up with a driver. The app handles all of the pairings, and it also takes care of the payments, it takes care of the reviews, and it takes care of the tipping in some instances. Now, the reviews are an important part because it allows drivers and riders to rate each other, and higher rated drivers are paired with higher rated riders, right? This means that you are incentivized to give better community service and be a good rider as well. Be polite to your driver, that sort of thing. Now, the two biggest ride sources in this space, you've probably heard of them, are Uber and Lyft. Now, this is not including taxi companies, since taxi companies can technically be called ride sourcers now. Now, this is why they can be called ride sourcers now, because when Uber and Lyft came onto the scene with their app-based ride sourcing, it caused a huge shakeup in the taxi industry. Uber and Lyft had extremely lower prices because they didn't have to have the overhead of buying all the cars that people needed to fuel, right? So because of Uber and Lyft having such lower prices, we end up with this better solution that completely cuts out the taxi industry. We also end up with better customer service. Now, when the lower prices happened, taxis had to lower their prices too. When the better customer service happened, taxis had to make better customer service as well. And when we talk about customer service, what I'm talking about are the apps especially, right? You don't have to stand on the side of a street and wave a cab down. They also have better customer service during the drive, as in like the driver is being reviewed, and so they need to be polite. And because of those reviews, it incentivizes that politeness. The third way that it has way better customer service is the automated payments. With Uber and Lyft, it's immediately withdrawn out of my bank account just by using PayPal. Like right away, I don't have to worry about taking my wallet to have cash or have a card. Because of this, it's forced also the taxi industry to have better ride services, right? Now, honestly, I'm going to be honest, I haven't taken a cab recently, and so I couldn't tell you if cab companies are doing this now, but I bet they are. Uber and Lyft have in-ride services that like allow you to charge your phone, have complimentary water, or even control the stereo. And again, it's because of these reviews that incentivizes them to give good service, and also because of the tipping once they added that. For example, when I go to the airport, the rider always loads my bags into the trunk for me because he wants the good review and he wants the good tip. This better customer service is something that was lacking in the taxi industry, and Uber and Lyft changed that. Now, because it forced the taxi industry to change and also change the way they worked, there was a lot of lobbying by a lot of taxi unions and a lot of protesting by taxi unions to get Uber and Lyft restricted. Basically, instead of competing, they wanted to use the laws to muscle them out of the industry. And as we all know, considering how prolific Uber and Lyft are, that didn't work out very well. The picture I'm showing right here is actually from a protest in Toronto. I believe, if not, one of the biggest protests that happened was in Toronto. But there were taxi protests all over the world. Now, let's get some background on Uber and Lyft. Uber originally was actually just an expensive cab that happened to have an app. It was like 1.5 times more expensive. That'll change when they launched UberX in 2012, where it allowed anyone to drive for them. Just have to have a background check and a car requirement. Both these places have it. And they need the car requirements because no one wants to be picked up in a smart car. Lyft had a bit of a different start. Lyft originally was called Zimride, and Zimride was actually ride sharing, as in carpooling. So a college student who wanted to go to some long distance place would be able to network with other students who wanted to also drive that long distance. Eventually they changed during, I believe, a hackathon And around 2012, they changed their business model to be similar to that of UberX, where anyone can drive for them and they can focus on shorter trips within the same city. For context of why there are cars with pink mustaches on my presentation, that's because that's originally how Lyft was identified, was with the pink mustaches. Nowadays, they have stickers like Uber and they have dash lights. Now, in conclusion, the taxi industry was completely left in the dust by Uber and Lyft because the Uber and Lyft companies innovated and they forced the taxi industry to either innovate or they would fail. And in the taxi companies who didn't want to innovate, they ended up lobbying and protesting because they wouldn't innovate. They were left behind so much, and one of the biggest things that made them get left behind is because of the mobile phone app and how that really plays central to Uber and Lyft. Because they were the first to get on that, they reaped the benefits of having a mobile phone app long before the taxi industry could. And thanks to Uber and Lyft, now college students and lower income riders can afford the transportation if public transit is unavailable or not feasible. And customer service with Uber and Lyft increased immensely. Now I can find a cab with a phone app and the driver is going to be more polite, assuming I show the same courtesy and I'm a highly rated rider. I get out what I put in. Uber and Lyft have also now allowed for a much easier way to get to and from bars, so it's much easier to find a DD. We have less drunk driving because of Uber and Lyft. I don't even need to have my wallet with me. If I have my phone, I can get a ride. So this also means that one of the other big benefits is getting into airports. For me, the way I found Lyft was I needed rides to and from the airport and I didn't want to leave my truck in the parking lot. It's just that easy. So now I don't have to wait more than 5 minutes to get a ride from the airport or to the airport or really anywhere I need to go. It's just that easy. Now, if you want to read more on this, I have a few links here. These are two main articles that I think give a good aspect of what's behind Uber and what's behind Lyft. The Wikipedia pages give a really good overview, but these two articles are sourced a lot. The first one in particular is on that Toronto protest and a bit about Uber and why it's successful and why it's a good thing. And then the second one is about how Lyft got its start with Zimride. Thank you for listening to my presentation, and goodbye.